All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Growth by Shawn podcast. I'm sitting here with Bob Wischer today, the Bronco, the relationship engineer, if you would. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, brother. How you doing?
So far, so good. So, Bob, just give us the quick synopsis of a little bit about who you are, what you do, and really your mission.
Yeah,
So
like
I know
like
we've had some great conversations thus far, not to cut you off already, but I'm excited to learn from you today, man.
all right, cool. Well, like you said, I'm Bob Wischer, the relationship engineer. I work with primarily with hardworking, driven men who feel lost and connected by empowering them with tools and support to engineer a life that they love, full of joy, meaning, and connection. I do this because when I was growing up, I felt like the odd man out. I struggled to form deep connections, like the other guys around me seemed to be doing. And along the line of my growth here in the last 10 years or so, I made a shocking discovery about my own birth that helped me to realize why I was always felt that way. And armed with that information, I saw a chance to rewrite my story and start forging meaningful connections. So, through the guidance of multiple coaches and mentors, I've been able to untangle those knots of my life. And now I embrace a new way of living. And I'm on a journey to navigate life's changes with confidence and purpose. And I want to serve my fellow brothers by giving them a hand up the ladder of life.
So, would you be able to go into any of the details or share anything from this?
Sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that'd be helpful for us.
The biggest one is the birth timeline part of it. So what I in my studies to be, as my certification training, whatever, to become a coach, one of the things that I learned about was called birthrights. And um, during that process of learning how to work with people on that, it was a go through it yourself kind of thing. And the coach that I was working with at the time helped guide me to a revelation of a situation where basically in my youth, I realized, well, there was a couple actually. There was one that was early. I'll call it later in life, even though I was like 2 years old. But what I ended up even going deeper into that over the years, found out that when I was conceived, my parents were not yet married, and not that that's a huge deal in today's society, but back in the late '60s, it was kind of a deal in the small community where my folks lived. Um, what I what I can assume and take away from the pieces and bits and pieces that I know are that that was a very shameful thing for them. It was having a child out of wedlock. They were both they were I think my dad was 19, my mom was 20. They were pretty young, um, and they had to make a bunch of life changes. My dad was in college. Um, he had to basically then at that point get a job and give up college, give up his dream of playing professional baseball, and because I had come into the world, whether it was a mistake or not, that I've not verified. I'm sure they would say it's not. My parents have been awesome and amazing my entire life, but what I learned now, knowing that situation and what was going on, what I learned was how not just me, but any human baby, fetus at that point, basically 6 months prior to birth, you can absorb the energy of what's going on around you in the environment. Hence,
Mm.
my parents and their stress and their, oh my God, we're having a baby, life's going to change. What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to tell our parents? All of those things, right? All of that stress and anxiety, tension, all that stuff is getting embedded into the very tiny fibers of my body.
Mm.
And it's actually a thing. And
Mm.
until I learned this, 10 years ago, I didn't know that was part of the reason why I struggled pretty much in every facet of my life because I always had a feeling of basically it's called the right to it's called the right to every infant that's conceived has a right to exist. That's like or God get the right, but my body and my experience at that time felt like because of all of the stress, tension and stress that I was causing made me feel like I didn't have a right to exist.
Mm.
So where that shows up in my entire life is going to school and feeling like I don't fit in, going to changing from one elementary school to another because we moved between third and fourth grade, feeling like I didn't fit in, never having a good friend that I could bond with and talk to that I had things in common with, all the way up through high school, college, and into my first marriage.
Mm.
Um, just didn't ever feel like I fit in. I always felt like excuse me, I was a fifth wheel in the room. So um, what that has helped me identify now at this point is that that's all a bunch of garbage,
Mhm.
and that I do have a right to exist. I do have a right to thrive. I do have a right to um, be heard, be seen, all of those things, and most of all that I'm loved by God, regardless of if any person, place, or being in that I've ever experienced in my life didn't, I know He does.
Mm.
So putting all that together now gives me the confidence and the knowledge to take that what I learned and be able to help other people realize that maybe maybe there's something like that that happened in their very early years of um, their existence that kind of tripped that trigger and caused some of those feelings in their life, and just making sense of them helps so much.
Yeah. There's a huge component that we often don't realize or look at in terms of what you're talking about, like emotional trauma, for lack of a better term, right,
Mm-hmm.
can be stored in our tissues as well. It's often
Yeah.
reason why you may cry or get really sad during a massage, or especially during like hip work. Like that's a lot of like where uh inner child type trauma can be held,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. um and so even looking at like, there's your existence on Earth, right? And then there's your existence during birth, depending on what you believe. There may be an existence before that, right? But even just looking at your lineage itself, a very good, helpful little analogy that I've heard is what happens is your great 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 grandma, she puts on a backpack, and this backpack, she puts a brick in it, and that's something that her mother did to her, for lack of a better term again. And
Mm-hmm.
then she goes and she passes the backpack along, and then her grandma carries the backpack, and this repeated cycle, repeated cycle, repeated cycle, right? And eventually, me or you, we have this huge backpack that we're carrying, right? And it's got 50 bricks in it, and really all we got to do is just set the backpack down. We don't have to carry the backpack, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, I just think this is a lot of what you're speaking into here. What I'd love to start to look at is, you said you help people, especially men that feel lost, right? Perhaps
Mm-hmm.
similar situation as you. What does it mean to feel lost? And then what does it feel now to actually feel connected?
Good question. For me, Lost was um, in the later years of my first marriage. Um, I had gotten so disconnected from my ex-wife, and um, in the decade or so before that, I was getting more disconnected from old friends that I had because part of the deal of our marriage was that I had to be fully present with her all the time, and I wasn't allowed, for lack of a better word, to connect with my old friends.
Hmm.
Or it was something I was trying to appease her. I was trying to make her happy, and the wear and tear of that the wear and tear of trying to build a family, um, build a life for us, a home, um, putting my kids through school, all of that stuff, it just beat me down. Um, and I remember hearing back at that point, a definition of depression is trying to be too strong for too long, and that's where I was, and that's where I ended up. I ended up in depression, and I would literally sit at the dining room table. My ex-wife and my two kids were there, and they'd be eating and they'd be discussing their day, and I would just be sitting like this, staring at my plate of food, disengaged, disconnected, and just I felt like I was just beaten and defeated. And I'm Shawn, I was sitting in a house that was worth $500,000. I had a good job. I have two brilliant kids. They're currently in medical school. They're brilliant. Um, I had everything to go, but I was worn out. So that was what did it for me. That's what got me to that point of just feeling lost. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. Um, I ended up, you know, God willing, I had the right people that planted the right seeds in my life that were just like, okay, unless you get out of this marriage, you know, this is going to be your life.
Mhm.
So I left the marriage, got got into a new relationship shortly thereafter, and that was the turning point for me. Was my wife now? It was a night and day difference, and that was the beginning of me being able to see what I was, aside from like I mentioned before, having that feeling that I didn't feel like I was allowed to exist. I hadn't found that yet, but um, starting to feel like there was something or someone bigger that was running the show and did love me, and that was, finding God, finding Jesus. So, um, along in the past 10 years since I got divorced, I've not only started a relationship, found and started a relationship with Jesus, found and realized, besides that, what was wrong with me from my childhood, and why I was the way I was, and then getting to now, just everything. I tell you what, Shawn, everything that's happened to me in the last, I don't know, probably 6 months has just been absolutely incredible because of getting breaking down all of those old beliefs and that old identity of myself and what I was and who I was and who I'm becoming, and the people that are coming into my life, like David and you and the Ardent Man group, which I want to show you this. I got this sitting here on
Oh yeah.
my brick, my Ardent Man brick.
Yep.
Um, I've started an F3 group. I've got a couple of groups going at church, for discipling people. And on top of all that, I have my men's group that's now 5 years old, and I have been doing that to again, all of those things that I learned. The place from where I came, which was that low point of depression and not feeling like I know what I'm doing or where I want to go, and being able to find a purpose and something that I can, even this morning, I, I was sick last week, and this, it's still kind of wearing on me a little bit. My sleep's not quite back to where it usually is yet. And I woke up this morning and I was like, God, something wasn't right with my sleep last night. And of course, I checked, and I had basically virtually zero deep sleep last night. Um, but when I woke up, I sat up out of bed and I said, day one. And it's just like, it's like a reset button. It's like, okay, day one, and what am I becoming today? What am I going to do today? You know, how am I going to come into the world with inspired intention and action and be able to do the things I want to do? And who can I help today?
Mm.
So it's every day for the last several months has been just a dream. And that I it's the words joy, empowerment, contentment, peace. Those are some of the words that just I feel every day now. I talk to other men all the time, and it's frustration and anger and all these other words that are it's just I want every man, and I know it's probably somewhat delusional, but I want every man to have what I have, just to be able to wake up in the morning, and even though okay, maybe I feel like I didn't get a very good night's sleep, but as soon as those feet hit the floor, you know what? It doesn't matter that I didn't sleep good. I still got a million things to do today. They're all going to be awesome. And I'm going to help someone in some way, or I'm going to do something that's impactful for my community, my family, my employer, whatever it is. And and I'm just going to have a heck of a day.
Yeah.
And I think I even messaged you guys that this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, the work you're doing, like, um, absolutely astounding, right? Because I'm not at that point where I have a wife or a girlfriend that I have to worry about things like this, and worry again may not even be the right word, but take care of, or, be dependent on, or, insert in
Yeah, I know
emotion
what you mean.
or action there. Right. And so, but so many people that I talk to, right, depending on who you talk to, and I have conversations with, you know, 10 to 20 people every single day, where a lot of our lives, especially for men, is, oh, well, I've had the same job for 20 years. I've had, the same wife for 20 years. And, of course that's amazing for them, but they're not in a place where they're inspired and they actually are doing something that they want to do. And so, especially something that you had said previous that really stuck with me is you were fully present with her, not everyone else, right? It reminds me of the statement, happy wife, happy life, right?
Hmm.
And so, if we were to look at that and break that down a little bit, how do you go and approach not necessarily the saying of happy wife, happy life, but how do you make sure that your cup is filled as well as your partner's cup is filled?
Mm, good question. Yeah, I fill it just with conversations every day. Like you said, and you said you have multiple conversations a day. Everyone, if I had, I don't think I have quite 20,
Hmm.
but and maybe I have less quantity, but maybe more quality
Hmm.
because I get out of those conversations, I just get so much fulfillment. Anytime even I can share even a thread of wisdom with somebody, it fills me up. Um, and then I mean, and the beauty part of for me, I've got the Art and Man group. We've got what seven or eight guys in there that we can touch base with every day. I've got
Hmm.
a thriving men's group where I've got over 30 men in that group. There's no shortage of men I can touch every day and say, yeah, even just to say, hey brother, what's going on? How you doing? Checking in. And even
Hmm.
as long as I get a response, is you it usually will end up being a short, probably a short conversation, but just being able to know that I gave somebody that little bit of boost today. And then there's sometimes the ones that blow you away are the ones that were like, dude, how did you know I needed this right now?
Hmm.
Those are the ones, those will carry you for a week.
Hmm.
Those are the really good ones where it's just like, man, I really needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, and it just that's how I feel myself.
Yeah.
And in addition, I do my exercise, I do my meditation and my journaling and all that stuff. Those are my fundamentals, right? Those
Hmm.
are I honestly I've been doing most of those for so long. I don't even know that they are catalysts to helping anymore.
Hmm.
Technically, they're just routine. They're like brushing my teeth,
Hmm.
you know. So, and obviously brushing your teeth makes you feel good every day. At least
Yeah.
you have a nice minty fresh mouth, right? And the
Yep.
same thing with
Yep.
meditation and journaling and all that stuff. It just it gives me that extra oomph. Um, and I'm not going to say every day's perfect,
Hmm.
but 9 out of 10 or 85 out of 100 are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
There's actually a feature of the journal I use on my phone that I put every day as I'm journaling. It asks me my mood, and it's
Hmm.
basically just a red, yellow, green, a green smiley, a yellow smiley, or a red smiley. I think I've maybe hit the red smiley once or twice in the last 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, the yellow one, it doesn't get hit very often either. That was actually like last week when I was sick. I felt
Hmm.
like crap.
Yeah.
I'd hit the yellow. I'd just say, "Don't feel like journaling today. Still love you. Have a nice day."
Yep.
Oh, but uh, but for the most part, my days I can't say that I'm anything other than clean and green, man. It just I love what I do. I love inspiring people. I love challenging people to be better. My men's group's called Men Becoming Better Men.
Hmm.
I don't even remember coming up with that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I came up with it, but it resonates, and that's all I want. What you mentioned earlier with men that are just they go through work and they go through. I call that the hamster wheel.
Mm.
That's just us. We get into that mode, and that's where I was back at that point of my first marriage. I was just I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd go to work, I'd come home. I was not getting, you know, I wasn't in a supportive relationship,
Hmm.
so that wasn't helpful, and that's a huge difference. And I think he kind of referenced that in a question now, is with my wife now. It's a mutually supportive relationship.
Hmm.
It's not where I don't feel like I need to make her happy.
Hmm.
She's just gonna she's just first of all, she's a happy person.
Hmm.
Um, Even when she's been sick now too, because I gave it to her, but she's even though she's been sick, we've still been laughing and joking around because she's a genuinely happy person, even if she feels like crap.
Hmm.
But I also know that she appreciates the things that I do for her and have been doing for her before, during, and after her being sick.
Hmm.
Um, the same for me. I appreciate everything she's done, and it's just we actually almost have we joke about this. We almost have a competition. It's a competition between us to see who can please the other person the most.
Mm. Okay.
Whereas in past relationships, past marriage, it was always who can who gets who needs to get more out of the other person,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge key for relationships to be able to find that person who you can make it a competition, whatever whatever you want to call it, but just to be able to always want to please and perform is not the right word, but that's the word that's popping in my head.
Hmm.
The other person, you know,
Mm.
who can do the more things for the other person that meets their needs, fills their cup, speaks their love language, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, that's been a major uh, impact for me.
Yeah. One of the biggest takeaways there for me is definitely that hamster wheel mentality or life that people live, right? Your body and your nervous system, there's a reason why a lot of people they go and, you know, set an alarm, set an alarm, set an alarm, set an alarm. Your body already knows exactly the conversations they're going to have exactly the way that your body's going to operate. Your nervous system and your body already know what's going to happen, right? And so it's this continuous pattern, continuous pattern, continuous pattern. That's why you're feeling lethargic, not inspired, all of these different
Mhm.
things, right? And so, especially as I'm looking, like I bring up the example of when you were in middle school, high school, grade school, whatever, you're going on a field trip the next day, it's like you can't sleep because you don't know what's going to happen, right? The next day. It's this party for your nervous system, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm not saying to go and quit your job, but um, going and finding different activities or different environments to put yourself into can bring that extra inspiration or spice of life to yourself. And so I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into what you had said about like the love languages, right? And pleasing the other person. So what I'm hearing and what I want to know from your expertise is how can you go and identify your needs, right? And then have that build upon the relationship where you can both um, do to the best of your ability to really fulfill your needs as well as their needs.
Honestly, I think it comes down to the person.
Hmm.
I mean, some people are just mean.
Hmm.
I mean, there's no way about it.
Hmm.
But when you meet somebody that you connect with, um, and it was an absolute blessing that I met Lisa. So it's hard for me hard for me to say how, it was no magic way I did it. It just happened.
Hmm.
But just in finding that person, it's I don't know. That's a good question. I'd say, and I know this is hard for a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of guys, especially in my men's group, that um try the trials and tribulations of dating in the 2020s. Um, it, it's just to the trial and error that you have to go through because there are so many options. And there's so many people that are out there looking, and then there's people that are looking for one thing, long term, people that are looking for short term, and just to find the right person that, if you're looking for long, most people of my generation, we would be looking for long term,
Hmm.
back, in our 20s and 30s, looking for, and so it was a little easier back then. It's not easy now, from what at least from what I'm hearing. But to be able to just keep trying. I mean, that's really the advice that I give most of the men that I talk to, is they get so frustrated with, I got to go out with 15 different girls to meet one that'll, that even remotely, um, I have any shared interests with. But then it's, that, like you said, I think you said earlier when we were talking about Instagram followers, it only
Hmm.
takes a few Instagram followers. If they're all dedicated
Hmm.
clients or prospects, then you're golden, right?
Yeah.
It only takes one good woman to find the right one. Unfortunately, it might take 20 or 30 or God knows how many trials to find that one. But I if I was to be in the dating market right now, I would I would just keep turning over the rocks until I found the one that, you just click on every level. And like I said, literally with us, it's a competition to who can please the other one more.
Hmm.
Whether it's, doing things around the house, or you know I'm big on physical touch, right? That's
Hmm.
my number one love language. If she knows that if I'm having a bad day or I feel like crap, or she senses it in some way, shape, or form, all she's got to do is start rubbing my back, and it takes all that tension, takes all that anxiety, whatever it is I'm feeling at that point, it melts away.
Hmm.
Same thing for her. If she just needs to talk things out, and I have to listen. She's quality time,
Hmm.
and words of affirmation. So when I know when she's feeling down, she needs to hear how much I love her, how much I care about her. And I do because it's easy to say, but it that simplicity of what it does for her, and just to say I love you, just again, like it's that same thing for that the back rubs does for me, the words do for her.
Mm,
So it's having that understanding of each other, what your needs are, and then a lot of times we our default is, so my if my need is physical touch,
mhm,
and this is how I was in my first marriage, and this is why I know this is was wrong. My ex-wife was not physical touch. She was
mm,
actually very much not physical touch. But me wanting physical, I want to embrace, I want to hug, I want to back rub, I want to do, stuff like that. And she was completely, it was like it did the opposite for her.
mm,
So for me, if I'd have known that, and I'd understood better what her love, her receiving language was, and gave her more of that, it things could have worked a little better. Now she would the difference is she would have had to meet me halfway too, right? Even though she was super opposed to physical touch,
mhm,
she would have had to fill my love language to
mhm.
give me what I needed. And that's more or less where our relationship broke down, because she was not willing or able to do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, somewhat, right? And so, when I'm looking at 15, 20 dates, that's 15, 20 sales calls, right? And 15, 20 no's, okay, cool. But after the 20th, you're 20 steps closer to that one high ticket client that can change everything, right?
Yeah.
And so keep going, keep going, keep going, just like you're saying. Um, Something that I want to go into again, like dive a little bit deeper on, is you're a very high performer, right? And so how can you go and balance something like working 40, 50 hours? You've got all the podcasts, you've got the men's group, you've got all these different communities that you're a lead or a part of, and then also be able to go and make that time without. I guess my question more becomes, how important is it for you in your relationship and many relationships that you see to create space, but then to create also to create time together? Where is that like fine line of how much space do I give this person? How much time do we have? I understand how individual it can get and be, but how do you go and balance those two things?
Honestly, Shawn, I don't even think about it.
Mm,
I really don't. People have asked me this question before, and
mm,
people talk about balance, and I trust my internal, and I don't want to call it my gut feeling,
mhm,
but I call it more of my internal compass.
mm,
Um, like I said before, I know what fills my cup, so I spend a lot of time every day doing those types of things. Again, I also know her love language. I know what she needs every day. So when I'm here, when I'm home, I take that time to spend with her, and do the things that she needs from me. Um, but then she also the thing is, she appreciates what I do for other people. That
mhm,
also, and I don't know, maybe it never really thought of it until just now. Maybe it is part of her, part of the love language that she wants is to see me helping other people,
mhm.
which kind of gives me a little more agency to, go and do the men's group, go and do
Mhm.
F3, go and do,
Yep.
Ardent Man, go and do all these things that I'm
Yep.
I'm building into other men and other people.
Yep.
And she feels good that that she's able to give me that, which fills her in a way.
Mhm.
I have to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
See if
Yeah.
because
Um,
I do know she has commented. She very much appreciates what I do for other people. So I just
yeah.
never asked her that question that way.
Yeah. I had a question before the last one I was going to ask, and I was trying to remember it, but I remembered it once you said something. So when you're looking to connect with someone on a deep level, right?
Mhm.
Um, no matter how you want to interpret that, my question for you is, do you believe that you need to connect to yourself on a really deep level in order to be able to connect with someone else? or
Oh,
can
absolutely.
you help co-create that together?
No, you have to be able to go. There's a paradigm in my coaching that you can only go you can only go as far with a client as you're willing to go yourself.
Mm,
So for me to know that I've gone pretty deep, I mean, I've gone back to my pre-birth.
yeah,
I mean, you can't get much deeper than that.
yeah.
I can't go back much farther in my history. Um, to know that I've gone all the way to the bottom where I can, and yeah, and I've still got issues that I'm working through, but that
Yeah.
they're they're not as big as they were. You know, the water level is definitely getting lower. Um, but yeah, I have I love when people are willing and able, and there's not a lot. There are actually
Hmm.
there are not a lot of people willing and able to go to that depth to say, okay, here's a feeling I've been feeling for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Hmm.
You know, this something that's driving this shame feeling or this guilt feeling into my life, and let's just talk about it and try to
Hmm.
understand where it came from and why it's there. And you know, it's not like we're going to kick your parents, you know, for being bad parents, because parents our parents just love us, and our parents are just doing the best they can with what they know. I
Yeah.
had a conversation with my mom the other day. She's like, I was just doing the best that I could.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, nobody, and it, you know, and I know that,
Yeah.
and that's very easy to understand.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, the way our chemistry works in our bodies doesn't forgive ignorance. I
Hmm.
guess it still takes it as a fact and a meaning, and we make meanings out of the experiences that we have. And when we do that and they're misguided because we're because of our experience and our lack of knowledge of knowing that this happened because this, we make meanings about things and people and experiences, and it can tie us up in knots for a long, long time. And as men, that we're way worse at it.
Mm.
We will carry that stuff, and there's things that I know men will carry to their grave that they will never let, because of the just the sheer fear and of the magnitude of the shame and the guilt and embarrassment or whatever. But those little things are what ties us up, hold us back. And in my case, they made me play small,
Yeah.
and I'm not playing small anymore. I'm gonna go do whatever my heart tells me I should do,
Yeah.
whether it's to expand my men's group, to work with a client one on one, to help men, to help women, to whatever. Um, is just we are all uniquely built for a certain purpose
Hmm.
in this world, and thankfully I have figured out what mine is,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna keep doing whatever I can do to live into that and be intentional about it for every day of my life. So all I can say to a man that's kind of in that position where he's running on the hamster wheel and he's feeling like, how do I get out of this, or where do I get, you can get out of it. You've gotta be willing to ask for help.
Mm. Yeah. That's a big component of it, right? I think,
Yeah.
there's a lot you can take away from it, especially with the parents. It's easy to play the blame game, the victim mentality, right? And
Yeah.
just taking ownership, taking responsibility. That's a huge part of the process, the human experience. And just like you said, someone doing the best, the same way you can look at it a year ago, I would have coached someone completely differently than how I coach someone today, just because of the information, the knowledge, the wisdom that I have now
Yeah.
versus then. I did the best that I could with the information I had then. Now I have new information. I'm able to do a different or better job with it, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with
Exactly.
the parents. And especially as men, I think it's difficult at times, or at least to begin that process of opening up, talking about how you're feeling, especially if you've been more of that closed off. It's how you grew up, right? So it's all you know. So now 40, 50, 60 years old, and now you want to go and completely reshape all of your beliefs. It's not going to exactly happen in a day, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It takes a minute. It takes work.
yeah,
It's not, there's no, I've told men before, there's no magic bullet.
yeah.
I mean, I can understand what, what happened to me and my birth, but I still have to reconcile it. I still have to talk through it with somebody. I have to get all that out of the cell. It's been stored up in the cells of my body for 40, 50 years.
Mm.
I got to get all that stuff out. And the more I get it out, the better I feel. And then the more I'm able to expand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautifully said. Bob, before we get into our last question here, can you just let us know where we can find you, connect with you, the men's groups that you're running, if you're open to
Yeah.
sharing those?
I've got it pretty easy now. Website is menbecomingbettermen.com, all one word. Um, you can find information there on working with me one-on-one or my men's group. Unfortunately, the men's group is only local
Mhm.
to the Detroit area at this time, but I'm actually, and you know this because you're my
Yep.
accountability partner for it.
Yep. Yep.
I'm in the process of writing a book on how to start a Men Becoming Better Men chapter, and it's going very well. Um, so got a lot of work done on it yesterday, actually.
Oh, nice.
And then social media wise, Instagram, the relationship engineer. Same thing on TikTok. And then I have a private Facebook group um, that is by not by invitation only. I mean, you can find if you can find it, search it on Facebook.
Hmm.
Request to get in the group. It's Men Becoming Better Men,
Hmm.
um, private Facebook group.
Yep.
So and for men only.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some women lurking around in there that have faked their way into it, but it's
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
We don't talk about heavy stuff. It's just more about it's more just the social media type stuff,
yeah.
rallying the troops kind of thing, and just more ways to connect.
Yeah. We'll link it below. And so our last question comes from a guest on the last podcast. So this is from David Campbell. And Bob, what is one thing that you do different than others in your space? And why do you do it differently?
Mm-mm. One thing I do differently from others in my space. Um, I have to say, I mean, the discussion of the birthrights stuff. Um, I haven't I haven't heard of a lot of people doing that. I know that, obviously people that have gone through my um, the educational program that I went through obviously know it and can do it as well. But there were I don't know the exact amount, but I would say that there was probably 90% women and 10% men in my group when I went through. So I'd say there's very few men doing that kind of work. Um, I personally, I find it amazing. I know what it's done for me. Um, I know what it's done for the few people that I've put through it over the last couple of years. Because it does take some work to get there. It's not like we can just sit down and have one conversation. We've got to have multiple conversations. It takes a little while to unpack and unwind and work through. Um, and and you got to be willing to do that.
That's all it takes. That's all it
Yeah, it's
takes.
all it takes. Easy, right?
Easy stuff. Bob,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you, this
Welcome,
conversation
brother.
today. All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.